Lennox will share how I took charge of my life and put an end to my husband Callaway's harmful control. For privacy, I'll be using fake names, since it's important to stay anonymous, especially as a well-known lawyer in my state. We won't get into all the details of how Callaway and I fell in love, got married, and eventually divorced. What's important is that our love wasn't mutual. Callaway was unfaithful. The signs were there. He avoided me, spent long hours away from home, and often went on business trips. Even though I had my own successful career as a lawyer, Callaway always saw me as a failure because I didn't make as much money as him. One day, during one of his frequent trips, I finally decided to investigate. I found an old laptop of his and stumbled upon a hidden Facebook account confirming my worst fears. He was having an affair with a beautiful woman, someone he clearly thought was more attractive than me. Callaway often criticized my looks, and it shattered me to know this. Filled with anger and heartbreak, I confronted him as soon as he returned. "Callaway, are you cheating on me?" "I have proof," I demanded. His response was cold and cruel. "Lennox, you're just not interesting to me anymore. You're always wrapped up in your pointless cases, ignoring me. Plus, you're not exactly a supermodel who can keep my attention." Stunned, I shot back. "What are you even talking about, Callaway? I have a demanding job, and you knew that when we got married. I haven't ignored you. It's you who stopped coming home. It's you who shut me out." That's how I discovered his affair. When I finally confronted him, I expected at least some guilt or regret. Instead, his heartless response left me speechless. He shifted the blame onto me, acting as though his cheating was somehow my fault, a claim that made no sense. I wasn't about to let him twist the truth, so I pointed out the flaws in his accusations. Rather than defend himself, Callaway turned even colder. He smirked and said in a chilling tone, "I'm glad you found out, Lennox. Now I don't have to hide her anymore. She's beautiful, and we're going to have a perfect life together after I divorce you. Finally, I can marry someone worthy of my name." His words hit me like a truck. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized he wasn't just thinking about divorce. He was already planning it. Worse, he was insulting me, calling me a bad wife, and praising his Callista as though she were the better choice. There was no regret in his voice, no apology, only pride in his affair. He acted like I was nothing. Tears streamed down my face as he kept talking, proudly boasting about how he was going to leave me. This was the man I had loved for over a decade, and his cruel words shattered my heart. Through my tears, I asked, "How could you say that, Callaway? After all these years, I've stood by you through everything, always honoring our vows and putting you first." But his response was cold and dismissive. "It doesn't matter anymore, Lennox. You're just not right for me. I'm a successful business owner now, and I need someone who matches my status. A woman with average looks and a law degree that doesn't impress anyone isn't good enough for me." Feeling humiliated, I couldn't stay silent. "How could you, Callaway? I may not fit your shallow idea of beauty, but I'm a strong, capable woman. I've been a good wife to you, and now you're considering divorce?" Without missing a beat, he corrected me, his voice ice cold. "I'm not considering it, Lennox. I've already decided. I'm done with you. I've already hired a top lawyer, and I'll be filing soon. You better pack your things and leave before I get back. I don't want to see your face around here anymore." A few hours later, a friend of Callaway's showed up at my door with divorce papers. He looked at me with sympathy as I accepted them, closed the door, and broke down. I cried for what felt like hours, realizing that I had wasted years of my life on a man who never truly loved me. But as the tears dried, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to let this defeat me. I was stronger than that, and I was going to show Callaway exactly what I was capable of. When Callaway's friend handed me those papers, he let slip that Callaway was planning to drag out the divorce. At first, I was confused, but then it hit me there was a prenuptial agreement. If Callaway cheated, I was entitled to half of his business. In my emotional state, I had forgotten about it. But now it all made sense. Callaway wanted to prolong the divorce, hoping I'd give up and walk away without what was rightfully mine. I wasn't about to let that happen. I immediately contacted his lawyer and set up a meeting. Within 2 days, I moved out of Callaway's house and into my childhood home, which was still in my name. I sent Callaway a text that said, "I've moved all my things out of your house. Don't worry, I took my ugly face and body out of your sight." He responded with more arrogance, boasting about how great his lawyer was. But I stayed calm. "I'm not giving you my share of the business. You can stay away from me for now." I was determined to stand my ground and make sure he didn't take advantage of me anymore. I was ready to face whatever challenges came my way. "I don't want to talk to you anymore," Callaway had said. "From now on, speak to me only through my lawyer and make sure you clear out of my house." Hearing Callaway's words sparked a surge of rage deep inside me. It's shocking how anger and hatred can fuel your strength when you're met with such disrespect. Suddenly, everything became clear, and I nearly laughed at Callaway's ignorance. He had no idea who he was dealing with, and it was obvious his lawyer, Jake, didn't either. I arranged to meet Jake at a local cafe. When I arrived, I could see him start to shake as soon as he recognized me. He tried to stay confident, but it wasn't enough. Jake was a decent lawyer, but he hadn't expected to go head-to-head with someone like me. Callaway never thought of me as powerful, so Jake wasn't ready for what was about to happen. Jake's hands trembled as we greeted each other, but I decided not to intimidate him further. It wasn't his fault that I was in this mess. "Hello, Jake. Nice to see you here," I said, watching the surprise on his face. "Ma'am, I didn't expect you to come yourself," Jake stammered, clearly caught off guard by my presence. "The last names don't match because I got married after I became a lawyer. I use my maiden name for professional purposes," I explained calmly. "Oh, I see," Jake muttered, clearly uncomfortable. "So, I assume you plan to drag this case out? Is that what your client told you?" I asked, cutting right to the point. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat.
"You don't have to answer that, Jake."
"I've been married to Callaway for over a decade. I know what goes on in that thick head of his," I said, using my years of experience as a lawyer to put the pressure on. Jake fidgeted under my gaze. Trying to give him some clarity, I decided to explain. "Look, I know it's not your fault, so let me tell you what's really going on with this divorce." Jake looked confused. "What do you mean, ma'am?" he asked, clearly not expecting what I was about to say. "Did Callaway happen to tell you that he cheated on me?" I asked, watching his face for any sign that he knew. His expression told me everything. I could see the truth dawning on him. Jake had no idea. "No, he didn't mention anything about that," Jake admitted, flustered. "But he did say you might make some wild claims to ruin him." "Oh, Jake, you poor thing," I said with a sympathetic smile. "Callaway has played you, but you'll be happy to know he thinks you're one of the best lawyers out there. He really believes in you." "That's kind of him to say," Jake replied, his voice full of uncertainty. "But I'll never measure up to you, ma'am. I wish he had told me you were a lawyer as well. He only mentioned that you work at a firm." "That's typical of my husband," I said, shaking my head. "He never appreciated my achievements. He always looked down on my work and never took me seriously. But I was smart enough to make sure we had a prenuptial agreement." Jake's eyes widened in shock. The word prenup seemed to throw him completely off balance. I could tell he hadn't been prepared for this at all. Once again, Callaway had conveniently left out an important detail, hoping I'd forgotten about it. "There's a prenup in this marriage?" Jake asked, looking almost panicked. "Your husband never mentioned that. Do you have any proof, ma'am?" "Oh, I've got plenty of proof," I replied, confident as ever. I brought all the documents with me. I figured Callaway would try to avoid dealing with the consequences of his actions, but not on my watch. "I'd really like to see those papers, ma'am," Jake said nervously. "Also, I'll need proof of the affair if you have any." "Don't worry, Jake," I said smoothly, opening my bag. "I've got everything right here." I handed him all the evidence, messages, photos, legal documents. Everything was carefully prepared and waiting. Jake took his time going through each piece of evidence, studying them thoroughly. As he reviewed the documents, I could see the defeat in his eyes. He knew there was no way Callaway could come out of this without serious consequences. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he looked up at me, beaten. "You have solid proof of everything, ma'am," Jake admitted. "I had no idea about any of this." I figured as much, Jake, I said, trying not to gloat. I know how hard it is to deal with clients who aren't being honest, especially when the other side has a strong lawyer. You're right about that, ma'am, Jake sighed. I think that's all we need to discuss for now. I'll need to have a serious talk with my client before we proceed. Someone will contact you soon, though I can't promise it'll be me. I could tell what Jake was hinting at, but I didn't comment. I simply thanked him for his time and left the cafe. As I walked out, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I went straight to work and began preparing my own set of documents for the divorce. The sadness I had felt before was gone, replaced by a burning determination to make Callaway pay for what he'd done. Callaway had created this mess, and now he was going to face the consequences. And I knew there was no way he could escape what was coming. Just one day after our meeting, Callaway reached out to me. Even though I told him not to contact me directly, Callaway called me anyway. It was almost funny, though not surprising. I expected this to happen. When I answered, he sounded furious. "What did you say to my lawyer, Lennox?" he barked. I couldn't help but smile. "Oh, look who's calling me after telling me to stay away. What happened with your lawyer, Callaway?" "Stop messing around, Lennox. Tell me what you said to him that made him quit today." "Your lawyer quit today? How sad, Callaway," I said sarcastically. "I guess you should have been honest about what you're dealing with and who you're up against. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a nobody. I won't let you take my family business." "Oh, I'd love to see you try," I replied. "I'll hire a better lawyer than you ever could, and you just wait. I'll destroy you in court. You'll be begging me for mercy." "Well, sounds like a plan, Callaway. Good luck with that," I said, calm as ever. "Just a word of advice. Make sure you tell your new lawyer about your affair and the prenup." With that, Callaway hung up on me. I couldn't help but chuckle. He was in deep trouble, and he didn't even realize it. He tried to find a lawyer, but no one would take him on. My reputation in town was solid, and anyone who was foolish enough to believe his lies would be hit hard with the truth once I showed them the evidence. Callaway claimed he would make me beg for mercy, but I knew it was just a matter of time before he'd be the one begging at my door. And I was right. One morning, as I was getting ready for work, there was a knock at my door. It was early, and I wasn't expecting anyone. To my surprise, when I opened the door, there stood Callaway, looking tired and defeated. I let him in because I didn't want a scene outside my house. I already had enough to deal with. Once inside, I didn't waste any time. "Make it quick, Callaway. I don't have time to waste on you. I don't even know why you're here. We were supposed to communicate only through our lawyers." "Yeah, about that," he mumbled, clearly embarrassed. "I haven't been able to find a good divorce lawyer yet." "Oh, that's unfortunate, Callaway. You better hurry up. I hear your Callista has been dying to marry you." "I'm not worried about her anymore," Callaway said, shaking his head. "Listen, Lennox, we need to talk. You've been sabotaging my chances with every lawyer. It's unfair." I burst out laughing. I couldn't believe he had the nerve to blame me for his problems. This just showed how little he valued me or my profession. He thought throwing money around would make people fall at his feet. "Oh, Callaway, that's a great joke. Let me clear that up for you. I haven't sabotaged anything. Your own stupidity is what's causing your trouble." "I don't get it. What did I even do wrong?" he asked, genuinely confused. "Should I remind you that you lied to your lawyers about the affair and the prenup? That's enough to make them look foolish in court. Do you think any lawyer wants to represent an unreliable client like you? Besides, let's be real. My name holds weight in this town. You might think I'm useless, but I have a solid reputation in this profession." "I know that now, Lennox," Callaway admitted, his voice full of regret. "I've tried being honest with some lawyers, but none of them are willing to take my case." "Well, Callaway, that's what happens when you try to go against an ironclad prenup. You should have thought about your affair before you went ahead with it. But it's too late now. The damage is done. No sane lawyer will take your side. You'll be giving me half of your business." Callaway's face dropped. I could see how much he didn't want to lose his business. That's why he had tried to hire a top lawyer and drag out the divorce. His plan was to wear me down until I'd give up and leave without demanding my share of his company. But now, after days of searching, it was clear no one would help him. He was even struggling to find a lawyer who would dare go up against me. Then, as if it was his last option, Callaway started to cry and beg. "Lennox, please. You know how much this business means to me. Don't take it away. You can have everything else. Just don't ask for half of the business." "Why not, Callaway? You were the one who insisted on putting that clause in the prenup, the one that says I get half of the business if you cheat. Do you really think I'm going to give up my rights that easily? After all the betrayal you threw in my face, I deserve it. It was a mistake, Lennox.
I swear.
The affair, it was a huge mistake. I've even put the relationship on hold because I realize how wrong it was. Maybe we can give our marriage another shot. I'm sure we can make it work." I laughed out loud. The audacity of this man was unbelievable. He was actually asking me to get back together with him, as if I would be stupid enough to consider it. I had already heard the rumors that things between him and his Callista weren't going well. Apparently, she was upset and Callaway wasn't happy either. But if he thought that was enough to make me want to reconcile, he was out of his mind. I had learned my lesson the hard way. Marrying Callaway was a huge mistake, and I wasn't about to make it again. I knew exactly why Callaway was suddenly so desperate to get me back. "You must be delusional to think I'd even consider getting back with you, Callaway. Do you think I'm stupid? I know the only reason you want me back is to avoid splitting your business," I said bluntly. "Lennox, we were happy once. Can't we just look past this mistake and restart our marriage? I'll cut off my Callista, I swear," he pleaded, trying to sound sincere. "There's no need for that, Callaway," I replied, shaking my head. "That woman will be gone the minute she finds out you're not going to be rich anymore after the divorce. As for me, this is my golden opportunity to walk away from this sham of a marriage. I'm actually grateful you showed me your true colors before we ever had kids. Now, you're going to deal with the consequences of your actions." I was done. There was nothing left to say. Callaway kept begging, trying to convince me not to take his business, but his pleas didn't move me in the slightest. All it did was remind me of the countless nights I had cried myself to sleep because of his betrayal. Seeing him in such a pathetic state only brought me a sense of satisfaction, knowing that my revenge was complete. Now, all I wanted was a clean break to start fresh. Well, I got more than I had expected. Karma hit Callaway hard and fast. For weeks, he tried everything to change my mind, begging me to come back home, but I ignored all of it. I wasn't interested in his drama. I was ready to move on. Since Callaway had already filed for divorce, I hired someone from my firm to represent me. I wasn't a divorce lawyer, and I wanted as little interaction with him as possible. After a month of trying to get me back, Callaway realized he had no choice. He was forced to hire a lawyer and agree to a clean break. He knew that if we took this to court, he would be publicly humiliated and end up wasting even more money on legal fees. So he agreed to a mutual divorce. Thanks to the prenup, it was easy for me to get the settlement I deserved. I had plenty of proof that Callaway cheated, and as the prenup stated, he had to give me half of his business. Of course, he wasn't happy about it, but there was no way out, so he signed over half of his company to me. We did offer him a chance to buy me out, but he had no money left. You might be wondering how a big business owner like Callaway ended up with no money. Well, it's simple. He spent it all on his Callista. The funny thing is, she's not taking his calls or texts anymore. I guess she figured out he's not going to be wealthy after the divorce. And now no one else is willing to date her either. Her reputation as a gold digger has spread far and wide. What goes around comes around, right? But the Callista was the least of Callaway's problems. With half of his business gone, his income was cut significantly. He couldn't afford to maintain his big mansion or even keep up with the mortgage, so he was forced to sell it. Now, he's renting a condo, which is a serious downgrade from the luxurious life he once had. He even tried to get back with me again, hoping to regain full control of his business, but that was never going to happen. He'll have to figure out a way to keep things going or save enough money to buy me out. As for me, I'm doing great. I hired someone to manage my share of Callaway's business, and things have been going smoothly. With the extra income from both the business and my law practice, I upgraded my lifestyle and bought myself a new mansion. I'm living my best life, and honestly, I couldn't be happier. All in all, The divorce worked out perfectly for me. Instead of being played by Callaway and his Callista, I ended up turning the tables, ruining their lives, and bettering mine.